Imagine your arms could solve problems while you were thinking about something else entirely. Not helping you exactly, just going ahead and handling things on their own. Reaching into a crevice, deciding what to grab, figuring out how to open it, without asking you first. Imagine your hands could taste what they touch. That is not a superpower from a comic book. That is just Tuesday for an octopus. And it raises a question that has nagged at scientists for years. Does that octopus actually think? And if it does it think anything like us? The answer is stranger and more interesting than either yes or no. Start with the architecture. That alone is already unsettling. An octopus does not have one brain, it has 9. A central brain sits behind the eyes, a ring of neural tissue wrapped around the esophagus. Then one more in each arm. 8 autonomous local nervous systems, each capable of making decisions without instructions from the center. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are not in the brain at all. They are in the arms. 500 million neurons total, distributed across the body, roughly the same count as a dog. So the question is not just whether an octopus is smart. The question is where exactly the thinking is happening. A researcher at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole did something fairly disturbing. They removed an octopus arm and placed food in front of it. The arm was no longer connected to the octopus. The octopus was in another container entirely. And the arm reached for the food. It grasped, it manipulated, it responded to chemical signals in the water. An octopus arm continues reacting to stimuli for up to an hour after it has been severed, because the local intelligence has not gone anywhere. The central brain is gone. The arm is still working. That is not reflexes in the way we usually mean the word. That is something closer to independent cognition, running in a limb. Your hand does not decide. Everything your fingers do is authorized from above. A signal travels from your brain, down your spine, to the hand and back. Yours is a centralized system. One headquarters, one chain of command. An octopus runs something more like a federation. The central brain sets the general goal: find food, escape, investigate. The arms work out the details themselves. The center does not micromanage. It cannot, and it does not need to. That raises something genuinely strange. What is the experience of being a mind spread across 9 locations? Is there an octopus, in any unified sense, experiencing the world from one vantage point? Or is there something more like a committee, with 8 members running simultaneous parallel processes and one at the center trying to integrate the reports? Nobody knows. We are not even certain the question has an answer we could understand from the inside. This is one of the reasons the octopus has become so important to researchers thinking about what intelligence actually is. Not just how much of it a creature has, but what shape it takes. And that brings us to the eyes. This is where the story gets genuinely strange, and I do not use that word lightly. An octopus eye, if you examine its structure, looks almost exactly like your eye. A single lens, a retina at the back, a pupil that adjusts to light. The optical geometry is nearly identical. The two systems are so similar that when biologists first looked at them closely, they suspected common ancestry. Some shared ancestor far back in the evolutionary tree that developed this basic eye plan and passed it on. But that is not what happened. The last common ancestor of an octopus and a human lived more than 600 million years ago. It had no eyes worth mentioning. The vertebrate eye, your eye, evolved separately from the octopus eye. 2 completely independent evolutionary paths across hundreds of millions of years, arriving at almost the same solution. This is convergent evolution. When the same problem has only a few good answers, natural selection finds them again and again in different branches independently. What this tells us is something important about intelligence as a general phenomenon. When the environmental pressures are right, minds and the structures that support them tend to emerge. Not because they were planned, but because they work. Now here is the paradox. Octopuses can match any color in their environment with extraordinary precision. Watch footage of one. Watch it flow across sand, then rock, then coral, cycling through textures and hues in seconds. It is one of the most impressive visual displays in nature. And it is not just camouflage in the passive sense. It is active, real-time, dynamic color matching. The octopus does this with skin that contains pigment cells called chromatophores and reflective cells called iridophores, all under direct neural control. The skin becomes a display screen that the nervous system paints in real time. Here is the problem. Octopuses are colorblind. They have only one type of photoreceptor in their eyes. One. Humans have three. One for red wavelengths, one for green, one for blue. 3 channels of information. We compare the signals and perceive color from the differences. The octopus has just one channel. By every standard definition, that animal should not be able to distinguish colors at all. So how is it matching them perfectly? The leading theory is that the photoreceptors are not only in the eyes. Growing evidence suggests the skin itself can detect light directly through the chromatophores without involving the brain at all. And separately, the octopus's distinctive W-shaped pupil may function as a spectral filter, sampling different wavelengths at different positions, giving the visual system more color information than a single photoreceptor type should allow. The octopus may see color through its skin. When it solves a problem, the solution is often one you would not have predicted, because the hardware is not what you assumed. If you find this kind of thing fascinating, minds built differently, using completely different tools to arrive at intelligence, this is exactly what this channel is here for. We go inside the heads of creatures you have never thought to ask about. If you have not already, subscribe so you get the next one when it goes up. Now let's talk about what octopuses actually do with that intelligence. Problem-solving tests on octopuses have produced some of the most compelling results in animal cognition research. They open screw-top jars from inside sealed containers, working out how to unscrew the lid from the wrong side. They navigate mazes. They observe other octopuses solving puzzles and then solve the same puzzles faster. Something like social learning in an animal that almost never encounters its own kind. Then there is the coconut shell behavior, first documented off the coast of Indonesia. Wild octopuses collect discarded coconut shell halves from the ocean floor and carry them, awkwardly, in a kind of stilted walk, to use later as portable shelters. This is tool use. The animal picks up an object with no immediate benefit, transports it, and deploys it later in a different context. That is not instinct. That is planning around a future the octopus has not yet entered. And they remember faces. Aquarium staff regularly report that octopuses treat different caregivers differently, squirting water at one handler, behaving calmly toward another. A study at a Washington State aquarium documented this systematically. One keeper fed and handled an octopus gently for a week. Another touched it with a bristled stick. After 7 days, the octopus consistently angled toward the gentle one and fired a water jet at the other. It had filed away 2 faces, attached a different experience to each, and was applying that record to the present. For an animal that would almost never encounter the same individual twice in the wild, this is an extraordinary thing to be able to do. And then there is the question of dreams. Researchers at the University of Washington observed sleeping octopuses undergoing rapid, complex color changes. Flashes of white, yellow, brown, patterns rippling across the skin in seconds, while the animal was completely still. They identified what appears to be an analog of REM sleep, the stage most associated with dreaming. In a waking octopus, those same color changes would signal active camouflage or emotional arousal. In sleep, they appear spontaneously. Whether there is any experience accompanying this, whether the octopus is somewhere, seeing something, is impossible to know. But the parallel is too precise to ignore. You have to ask yourself, what would an octopus dream about? This brings us to the piece of the puzzle that stops the story from being simple. Octopuses are extraordinarily intelligent by most measures we have. And yet, they never built anything. They never accumulated culture. They never passed knowledge from one generation to the next. An octopus lives between 1 and 5 years, depending on the species. They are almost entirely solitary. When they reproduce, the mother dies shortly after the eggs hatch. The young octopus begins its life with no adult to learn from, no cultural memory, no accumulated knowledge from previous generations. Every octopus, however smart, starts from zero. This is intelligence without civilization. The octopus worked out tool use, face recognition, and problem-solving alone within a single lifetime, with no teacher and no one to pass anything on to. No traditions, no accumulated knowledge, no way for one individual's insight to become the next generation's starting point. Which may be why, despite intelligence that rivals many mammals, octopuses did not become the dominant life form on Earth. Intelligence is necessary, but not sufficient. Without the ability to pass what you know to the next generation, you stay brilliant, but frozen. A paper published in Nature in 2026 asked the question directly, is there another way to be smart? Not smarter than us, not dumber, but differently organized. A decentralized intelligence distributed across a body where the arms think and the center coordinates rather than commands. A parallel architecture rather than a hierarchical one. The paper's argument is that the octopus is not a failed attempt at mammalian intelligence. It is a completely different solution to the problem of surviving and navigating a complex world. There is something important in that. We tend to measure intelligence in a single dimension, how much of it something has. But the octopus suggests that the more interesting question might be what shape intelligence takes. Whether it lives in one place or 9. Whether it accumulates across generations or reinvents itself from scratch every time. Whether it sees the world through photoreceptors in the eye or possibly through the skin. That is the thing the octopus keeps showing us. Intelligence is not a single invention that happened once and spread. It is a solution that life keeps discovering in different forms, with different architectures, wearing different bodies. And if you take that seriously, the next question becomes uncomfortable. How many other shapes of intelligence are out there, in forms we have not yet recognized as intelligence at all? If octopuses could communicate with us, really communicate, not just open jars at us, what is the one thing you would want to ask them? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to see what you come up with. And if you want to keep going down this road, what it is actually like to be other kinds of minds, subscribe. The next video is going to take this somewhere you probably did not expect.